But right now it is time to welcome our special guest, Bob Young, who is the founder and CEO of a company called Geese Chasers. It is a company devoted to making sure Canada geese do not get too comfortable in a place where they can cause problems. Bob, welcome to You Bet Your Garden.
Oh, well, thank you, Michael. I'm thrilled to be here, and it's an honor to be on your show. And we are in the midst of our busy season right now. So I'm here to answer any and all questions you may have.
Okay, well, we want to talk about your company a little bit, but first let's lay down the basics. You and I know there's lots of different kinds of geese, but for our intents and purposes, there are Canada geese that migrate and Canada geese that are called residents who no longer migrate. And yes. I'm guessing it's the resident geese who decided to move into a neighborhood and stay there that are your biggest challenge.
Yes. The resident geese are the ones that are the big problems. They're the ones that are nesting, roosting, feeding, building nests, raising their families year after year on certain properties. They typically come back to the same property if they have a successful clutch the year prior and will build another nest close to where they were previously.
And although they may travel a little bit, they don't migrate in the true sense of the word like monarch butterflies.
No, their migratory patterns, the resident geese have been studied for years, and the last study I saw years ago was that their migratory patterns in the Mid-Atlantic fly zone, which we sit here in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Virginia, all along the Mid-Atlantic states, has been estimated at less than 20 miles in any direction.
And where a true migratory Canada goose will travel how far?
Well, it all depends on where they call home and where they go to spend their winters in the south or in an area that has a good food source. Now, where we are, our winters aren't that harsh, and the food source is usually available 12 months a year, unless we have a real harsh winter, which a migratory flock, if they come to New Jersey, say from up in Canada, the Arctic Circle, that area, if it becomes a problem, nature kicks in and they head a little bit further south where the grass is exposed from underneath the snow that's not covering it, and the ponds are not frozen over as well, because that's really their safe haven, is being in the water if they're ever attacked on land by a predator-like animal.
Now, years and years ago, decades ago, going back maybe 100 years, there was no such thing as resident geese, right?
Not in this country, there wasn't. The research and data I've looked at, the populations really started to decrease in the 80s and 90s, and it's estimated now that the population in this country grows at a rate of between 10 and 15% annually.
And you and I did have a brief chat the other day, and I did some further research, and it is indeed true that right around 1930, the practice of hunters using captive geese as decoys to lure geese down to a waterway for hunting was outlawed, and the hunters simply released their captive geese, but they had been around for so many generations they had lost the migratory instinct.
Yes, well, especially if they're introduced to an area that has a food source available to them 12 months a year, they're going to stay. I mean, the problem with geese is that they're a very intelligent animal. People don't give them enough credit, but they are by nature lazy, and when they get a nice, comfortable area where they're not threatened by a natural predator, which is the Arctic fox, they're going to stay, and they're going to take up residence, they're going to nest, they're going to roost, they're going to feed, and that's where they're going to hang out.
And this is a problem largely because the size of a goose and the legendary transportation of food from the mouth of a goose down to the grass on the ground.
Yes. The average adult goose, healthy adult goose, can produce about 1 to 2 pounds of droppings per day. Now, if you have a flock of just say 20, 30 geese on your property, an average size flock, I mean, just on how many pounds of goose droppings are going to be left behind on a daily basis. Plus, they're tearing all the grass up, which is their food source, up by the roots. And their droppings, once they get absorbed into the ground, they make the soil very acidic. Now you're going to have very hardened type of back in their spot instead of nice fertilized grass, which is what the Canada goose loves.
So it's not like the herds of bison that would roam and eat some grassland and it would regenerate and their poop would fertilize it. It's just a negative all around.
It is a negative. And, you know, like we discussed the other day, you know, geese have the top 5 feeding spots. And their first spot, they'll spend about 80-90% of their time there. Their secondary, third, fourth, fifth spots are going to be all divided up, kind of like in a pecking order. So if they experience trouble or development or a predator-like animal that's attacking them or their offspring, they're going to move to their second, third, fourth, or fifth spots, which are going to be much safer for them. And that's where they'll set up shop, and then the whole thing repeats itself.
So the same gaggle of geese could cause problems for 3, 4, maybe 5 different properties?
At some level, it's typically the primary spot that they're spending most of their time at is going to be the major issue with homeowners, people that enjoy parks, athletic fields, corporate campuses, HOAs, things along those lines. That's where the problems occur, and that's where we come in and use a very humane method with our border collies, which are highly trained in our dog handlers. We send the message that they're no longer welcome here. You know, they think they're being attacked by an Arctic fox, which the border collie mimics in many of its ways, its size and look and everything to the Canada goose. That triggers the inherent predatory response in the animal, and they move on.
One of the reasons, obviously, that you're on the show now is there has been a lot of talk about wild birds spreading avian flu through their droppings. But you reminded me that Canada geese were a human health problem long before bird flu came along.
Well, there's never been any documented cases of different types of parasites and bacteria that are found in some goose droppings that has human to bird transmission. I've never seen a case of that documented, but I guess there is a potential health issue there. And as we discussed, we're hired by food processing plants, places that produce certain types of food products, or whether it's vitamins or whatever. They hire us because their workers will go out during their breaks to areas where maybe geese are, they're even feeding them. They'll step in these droppings and they'll vector it back into the building. And then the Board of Health comes in and does some testing. They find that maybe there's some Giardia or E. coli or something, you know, inside that plant. And you know, there's heavy fines that come along with that.
And that should be a warning, because these geese are so prevalent in many parts of the country that if you do step in goose poop, take your shoes off when you get home. Don't walk into the house with them.
Well, don't do that. Don't go in your car with them. Don't walk in other people's houses. You know, golf courses, which is one of our client bases, you know, these golfers will be stepping in all day. They'll get on the golf course, then they'll walk into the clubhouse, back in the locker room, in the restrooms, and it's called vectoring. They'll vector that stuff all over the place. Now, like I said, there's never been any documentation that it has spread to human disease or affected humans in that way, but I guess there is a potential.
Well, you know, you can get E. coli and Giardia from so many different places, there's almost no need to test. All right. So we got a goose problem. We have a big athletic field. It's nice and open. You can see it from the sky. Geese have decided to build their own housing development there. So you get the call. What do you do?
Well, first thing we do is we discuss the issue with the client over the phone. We schedule what's called a site visit. We go out there. We want to meet with the person who is the decision maker or the person that's getting all the phone calls, say, from the parents or the community. about the droppings and little Johnny or little Susie, tracking that stuff home every day or getting a cut on their knee and sliding it during a soccer game or whatever it may be, right? We go out, we look at the property, we assess the type of droppings, whether they're old, whether they're a week old, whether they're brand new, whether there's piles of them. We'll assess the whole property, and then it goes into a formula that we've developed over the years that how we do our pricing and cost analysis is based on how far it is from our home office, how far it is from our other clients that are on contract, and how long is it going to take us to get these geese off the property, up and out of there, and how many times a day initially in the initial clearing phase, which we estimate to be anywhere from 4 to 12 weeks, but we normally get them out there in a week or two, and then we provide them with a proposal.
Now, I think a lot of people have heard about using border collies to chase the geese away. I had this misinformation in my mind that it was like the herds of goats that they use to get rid of invasive plants. You just work one dog at a time.
One dog at a time. They're independent workers. We found out that very early. I discovered that if I had two really strong, driven working dogs, one would always shut down and just follow me around as I was giving either the hand or arm signal, depending on how far the dog was from me or across a big lake, or my whistle or voice commands. The dog would sit there and watch the other dog work. So we found that it's most effective with the use of one border collie per dog handler when they go out and they visit our clients.
Let's talk about what does work. You make a contract with this business or college or golf course. You show up then randomly and let the dog run around for a while?
Well, we'll show up. We set them up on a schedule. We do 2 visits during their morning and their mid to late afternoon feeding times. But we do show up at different times, and we always ask our clients to be our eyes and ears on site because we can't be there, 12 hours a day just sitting there waiting for geese to show up. We also have free on-call service that allows the client to text or call us, and we get out there usually within an hour to maintain a virtually goose-free environment. But we're there at different times during their feeding patterns first, the morning and late to mid-afternoon, at different times. Because like I said, these geese are smart. And we push them off, so now they got to go eat somewhere else. They got to find another safe place for them to feed. And that drives them to go to another area that's safe in their minds and not come back to the area where they're being threatened.
Now, there are laws here, even though the resident geese are no longer migratory. They're still protected under the International Migratory Bird Act. Yeah. So you have to be very cautious about how you handle their dispersal, right?
Yeah, we're humane. We're the humane solution. When they lay eggs in the springtime, we have to instruct our clients to go to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, apply for the egg addling permits or nest removal permits. They're considered the landowner, in quotes, and we're considered either the agent or sub-permittee of that landowner to act on their behalf to do the egg addling or to do the nest removal.
Right, and the egg addling is shaking the eggs so that nothing hatches out of it.
Yeah, so you break the yolk up. But you can't addle eggs too soon. Nature kicks in. The mother realizes that she had a bad clutch and she'll lay another clutch. So we always wait a minimum of 7 days after we flag a nest.
And this is nothing a homeowner is allowed to do or should do on their own without the correct permits.
Yeah, they are a protected species by the Migratory Bird Act of 1918, which is 107 years old. And there's thousands of species of birds on there. It just doesn't protect the Canada goose and all its subspecies. It protects a myriad of birds.
So you come out twice a day, maybe a little bit more than twice a day for several weeks. What are the odds that the geese are going to disappear and just not come back after a point?
Well, we've done a study. It's actually posted on our website. And with each exposure to our methods and our dogs, it becomes exponential over time, where if you chase them one day, then it'll be 2 days before they come back, and then 4 days, 8, and eventually they throw in the towel. They'll test you. You geese, like I said, they're lazy. They don't want to go anywhere else. They like that spot. They may have been there for 10 years raising their young. Then we eventually snap that generational chain, don't let them nest there, and they have to move on. But we did this in-house study early on when I first started this company, just to see how these geese reacted to us and how our methods were working so we could fine-tune them. And that's why we follow the model that we use with a minimum of 2 visits in the initial clearing phase from 4 to 12 weeks. I'd say we always can take care of the problem within a week or two, but that's dependent on the landscape. I mean, you might have a 300-acre lake, which have a lot of geese that are coming in there. A lot of different flocks, resident flocks, are using that, as an area to either nest or feed or whatever. So we've got to hit them, a lot. That takes a lot of time. That will take you 8 to 12 weeks to get that problem under control. But normally the simple ponds, the simple lakes, the parks, we usually get that problem under control within the first 1 to 2 to 4 weeks. And then we just maintain a zero goose environment.
And is this going to be a reoccurring problem most of the time, where the following year the pattern will repeat itself?
Well, listen, you're dealing with nature here. So it's not like you cut your grass one time and expect it not to grow the rest of the summer. We have a maintenance program that's very cost effective. People usually spend more money in landscape, repair with pollution control in their bodies of water. There's liability issues. People have slipped that stuff when they step on those fresh goose droppings on concrete or asphalt. It's like ice. They go flying. We've heard of people breaking their backs, their elbows. There's liability that goes along with it. So it is a safety issue as well. So that, it's, I guess, multifactorial, the problems that these geese do. And plus, this time of year, we get hired by corporations that have geese either close to their entrances or exits because they like to nest where they get a blast of warm air out of the building. But once that nest is built, the father will protect the mother and her clutch of eggs like you can't believe. They're very loyal animals, and they'll attack the employees or the customers who are going in and out of there.
I have done farm work in the past, and geese are large and they can be very aggressive.
They are. They can hurt you. They're about 20, 25 pounds, and they can put a hurting on you, those geese.
You don't want geese chasing your customers away.
Well, right.
Now, you have how many franchises around the country? People who each have a van and a dog and go out and respond locally?
Yeah, we have 16 offices now in 12 states. Most of them have at least 2 to 4 dogs, multiple vehicles, employees, part-time, full-time. They aren't employees of ours. They run their own businesses just under our rules and regulations and our help, our technical support, our training, anything else they need. We're there for 7 days a week. So,
and I was shocked to hear that New York City hires you to keep the geese from becoming a problem in Central Park.
Yeah, Central Park, multi-year contract. They love us. And also United Nations campus in Manhattan. Usually urban settings, other than their parks, really don't have a lot of low-hanging fruit from a business standpoint for us. But Central Park, we brought back a really nice balance of nature up there as per our North Jersey franchise owner that has the contract with New York City Parks.
Again, I believe you're even endorsed by the Humane Association?
Animal Humane Society, PETA, the Coalition to Prevent the Destruction of the Canada Goose, they endorse our humane methods. Because don't forget, the federal government will come in and round up geese at a cost with the proper permits in June, and they call it euthanasia. I'm an animal lover. I don't view that as euthanasia. Their methods, you can go on any of those, like PETA's website, there's videos of how they do it. It's really a bad look for communities or businesses to do that. And it's becoming less and less popular over the years that I've seen, because the community, there's such an uproar when they do that to these beautiful animals. We have a solution that can move them on to areas that really aren't affecting people. We keep them moving.
I guess that would be the ideal goal, to get them out of public places and into areas where people aren't stepping on it. They're not being attacked.
Yeah, it doesn't impact the public as much.
Because one thing animal lovers have to realize is no matter how much they enjoy looking at deer or looking at geese, and for God's sake, I don't care how much you love them, don't feed deer, don't feed geese. They don't need your help, and you're just being a nuisance. But the numbers have gotten out of control, and at least in your situation, it sounds like you can get them away from the areas they pose the most harm to humans.
Oh, 100%. And it's why we're so successful. You know, we take this very seriously. We're very unique in our methods and what we do. We want to be humane, and we want to be effective for our clients.
And I had to laugh when I spoke to you yesterday. I asked a question. You said, oh, yeah, that there are associated companies you work with, who come out with super pooper scoopers and clean up the mess after. And I said, it's like the guy at the end of the circus with the trash can and the broom following the elephants out to the train, right?
That's right. We try to get him. We have one guy that we, for business, do, if the client wants that. A lot of times the clients will hire us and they don't want to incur that extra cost. But I don't think the extra cost to do that is very much. But we try to get him to come out before our first scheduled visit under contract, just so they can see what it was before our service and what it's going to be now with our service. You know, you go from a real dirty circus floor from the elephants and animals to a pristine, finely raked area. So,
it's great. One thing I think you and I both want to remind people, we're talking about border collies, a very specific breed. People fall in love with them instantly, but they are working dogs. They need a job. They're not lap dogs. They're not sitting around the apartment dogs. They are bred to work, and they are desperately unhappy if they don't have anything to herd. So
it's true.
This is stimulating to them, but don't adopt them because you fall in love with them, because you're not going to be able to handle them. Their energy level is above that of almost any human.
Yeah, I was talking to a Border Collie owner and trainer in agility and what's called flyball at the Philadelphia Dog Show back in the 90s when we were exploring on a dog for my kids who wanted a dog desperately. And we really took our time. I remember I went up to this dog handler and owner of this Border Collie that just won this agility contest. And I stopped her and started talking to her. And I said, what do you think about a Border Collie as our first dog? She stopped immediately. She kind of had a scowl on her face. She goes, you want to get a Border Collie as your first dog for your young family? Because my two kids are right there with us. And they were probably 4 and 7 at the time. She looks at me and she says, owning a Border Collie as your first dog is like getting a Ferrari when you're 17. You have no idea what you're getting yourself into. And then she just took off. So you have to know what you got to get yourself into. These dogs need mental, physical, and emotional stimulation every day. They need a purpose, and they're going to hold you to it. If you're not going to do it, you're 99 things out of 100 things that a Border Collie finds to do when you're not around, you're not going to like.
Oh, no, they're going to eat your couch. Absolutely, they're going to eat your
walls to get out of the house,
So, once again, one of the things I like about your solution, it is a real problem. We have to be careful, especially now with the avian diseases on the rise. But you're making the dogs happy, too, which is a really 100%. Nice closed circle.
Border Collie people love us because we do provide a job, a working environment for them. That alone, they love us, so we give these dogs purpose. Because, how many farms are even out there that are going to have a dog herding sheep or cattle or working on the farm and doing a job? Not many anymore, So the percentage of Border Collie owners in this country is huge. They're a very popular breed, but a lot of them end up in rescues, and it's a shame for that animal. They're such beautiful, smart animals, but you have to understand what you're getting yourself into.
And we have been speaking to Bob Young, the founder and CEO of Geese Chasers, that has offices in many parts of the country. So the problem is not impossible, and you get to make the doggies happy at the same time. It's a win-win.
Yeah. It's been a pleasure, Mike. Thank you so much.
The pleasure's been ours. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.